This is the Way to Go podcast. I'm Pastor Bill, along with Pastor Eric, and we are happy to be here on this podcast. Glad that you tune in. Feel free to share it too. I mean, if you like a podcast, hit the share button, let other people know that it's out there. And we're talking about manhood, really personhood. God put us here, men and women alike. And it said in verse 28, God blessed them, and this is Genesis 1. God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it, rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, and over every living creature that moves on the ground. And so you look at this and it says God bless them. And one of the significant things that we live in is we live in the blessing of God. And he gives rain. It says in the Bible that the sun shines on the good and the bad. The rain falls on the good and the bad. It doesn't matter. There's common graces as part of God's blessing, right? So, I think that's important to realize. No, I need God's blessing. That's part of this world too.
Yeah, and thinking, we talked in the last segment kind of about identity a little bit and also like purpose. And like this totally plays into it. Like from the beginning, God has blessed you.
Right.
Live in that blessing. Like
right.
Exercise in that blessing. You're not just here bebopping around and
right.
Little man can't get. No, like, have you read the Bible? Like, live in that kind of authority that God has given you over the earth here.
Right.
Have your stuff in order, have your household in order, rule over it.
Right.
Be in that. I think God has blessed us immensely. And there ought to be great joy in that.
Yeah, rule over, not saying guy rule over his wife. We're not saying that.
Right.
We're just saying know what your finances are.
Yeah.
Organize your world. If your roof is leaking, make sure you fix it.
Be a good steward of all that God has blessed you with as well is a huge part to me.
Yeah. I think too, God's help, my life is going to go well. I realize when I have God's blessing. You look at, okay, in the Bible, there's a guy named Joseph, right? So Joseph gets sold by his brothers. He ends up in Potiphar's house. Everything Joseph touched was blessed because God was blessing his life. Potiphar was blessed because of that. You look at others and they realize later on Laban, God is blessing Jacob. So he's with his father-in-law Laban, and Laban realizes I have everything this guy touches is blessed. I'm doing well because he's here. That's the importance of blessing. I've always wanted to be that kind of person like that Joseph, that the people around me are going to be blessed just by virtue of the fact that I'm there because God's blessing is on me, and to live in a way that would receive God's blessing because it is part of life. And I think some of the blessing that God gives, this world still produces crops.
Oh, yeah.
Food. There's wildlife,
right.
There's meat to eat, right? So, there's a continuing blessing, but then I think of the specific blessings also that God gives our lives is super important.
Yeah, no, that exactly what you were saying, that traces back to Abraham in Genesis 12.
Right.
I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curse you. Like,
right.
God said that to Abraham, and that's totally true. Like, yeah, because you're a part of it, we hope the ministry will also be blessed as well,
right?
Because you're a part of it, and things that people and relationships that people have. Hopefully, it's a blessing because you are there, because you're a part of it, and because you're a believer, because you have God on your side.
And I think when God's with you and giving you wisdom on how to live, even that helps other people around you. In other words, if God blesses you with wisdom, then somebody who's coming and needs help, then you can tell them something that's of the Lord, so that God can do something good and endow that person's life with blessing. So I look at the blessing of God and realize, hey, this is his protective umbrella over me. It's super important. I need it. I want to live in it, under it, through it, by it, however you want to say. God bless the world. And because God's blessing is on the world, that's huge. Even Jesus Christ talks about people who accept the message, let your blessing be on them. And when you leave, your blessing's going with you. Yeah. Remember that? You have it, you can give it, you can take it back. It's pretty amazing. Here's another thing, too, about God's created world. In Genesis 2:2, it says, by the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy because he rested on it from all the work of creating that he had done. And I look at that pattern where God did all his work on 6 days, rested the seventh. This is creation order. A lot of times people say, well, the command's not repeated in the New Testament. It's creation order. It's the way God made the world to start with. You can't work every day. You need boundaries. You need rest.
Even Jesus himself withdrew from the crowds and rested and prayed on the mountainside.
Right.
We read that in the Gospels, and like even Jesus himself, being fully God and fully man, took breaks,
right.
took a Sabbath, took a rest. You know
right.
what I'm saying? So I think it's interesting to read about in the New Testament, but also up to this point in Genesis, chapter 1 and 2 verses in chapter 2, all that we're seeing God is creating, it is good, or it's very good. That's repeated multiple times, and we see God blessing things.
Right.
Things are perfect, quite literally up to this point. As God is establishing them, as God is creating them, everything is good. Everything is being blessed up to this point. Obviously, if we keep reading,
right? Yeah, the curse falls in the world.
It's and that's not from God. That's from.
Right. But there's still patterns. There's still patterns of be fruitful and multiply. There's still patterns of procreation. Men and women get together, get married, have children. Those children have children, so on and so forth. Like you still see certain patterns that are before the fall that continue after, including a day of rest. And one of the things where it helped me as a father was I didn't do work. Like I wouldn't paint on Sunday. I didn't pull weeds on Sunday. I just didn't mow the lawn on Sunday. I just didn't do it.
Right.
So then I like things to do. So I would go to church and preach. And when I got home, I'd be, well, you know, we can go to Yorkies and get ice cream in Pennsylvania, or we can go up to the lake and look at it, or we can go for a bike ride, or we can hike or kayak, or sometimes just sit out on the deck and hang out. But it was always a time for family because, you know, I spent my time with the Lord in the morning, but then, you know, in the afternoon I'd be with family. And I thought it was good to have a boundary that allowed for that rather than, oh no, you know, it's the second day of the weekend and I'm just going to work more and I'm not really going to be giving time to my kids. Right.
Right. Yeah. Boundaries only work as well as people follow them.
Right.
So yeah. And it is good to have, and it's tough being a pastor as well, because you know, we still have work on Sunday,
right? Especially
with youth group in the evening. Like that's a full day for me. I have to have this other day of taking a break and having that intentional time with my wife as well. You know, it's my most important ministry is my family.
Absolutely. So I would agree with that 100%.
In taking care of that and working on that as well. So yeah, no, it's difficult, and everybody has a billion and one excuses of being too busy and having so much going on. Like,
it works.
I understand.
Chick-fil-A is a top 3 fast food in the world, and they take every Sunday off. When I redid my house and we renovated it, I told the guys who were working on my house, there will not be a hammer swinging here on Sunday. There will not be drywall going up on Sunday. There will be no work here done at all on Sunday, and we got it done.
Yeah.
We could have worked it all 7 days. We're exhausted enough by the end of that project anyway. We needed the day of rest. But I said on Sunday, that's the Lord's day. We need a day of rest. Because even the Bible says don't even work your animals on that day. You know, in Austinburg, it was so much a pattern of a day of rest in this county when the county was first formed. There's a story told of one of the men who was initially early here, was sick on a Sunday and didn't go to church. His horse went without him. Because his horse was so used to going to church on Sunday morning, the horse went even when he didn't, because the horse knew it was the Lord's day.
I've also heard stories of farmers who worked their land for 6 years, and on the 7th one, just let the ground heal, and he'll travel. And he said he makes just as much money in those 6 years of work as all his other neighbors and other farmers do in the full 7.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
It's like, oh yeah, and it's one of those things. Like, yeah, you take a break and sharpen the axe, and that way you can keep on chopping the wood. You know, when you do return to that.
Yeah, I think that's a good analogy too. Sharpen the axe, keep yourself sharp. We're also designed to work in 2:15. This is Genesis chapter 2, verse 15. The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it. Work is before the fall of man. Before there was a curse on the world, we were working. We were built to work, intended to work. And sometimes I think people look at work as a 4-letter word. Like for some reason, work is a bad thing and I shouldn't be working. And I've never been able to figure that out, because that's pure nonsense. Of course we should be working, right?
Yes. You know, in our world today, there's so much unemployment right now. With stimulus check. I think to myself, like, there's been a couple periods of time where I didn't have a job. Dude, it's so boring.
Right.
quarantine. You guys remember quarantine, sitting at home with like nothing to do? That I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm about to put my head through this drywall. I am so bored. To me, it's like, how can you, I don't know. I also associate like work with like purpose and doing stuff, getting stuff done, that feeling, that sense of accomplishment, and to not have that, oh, it drives me nuts.
I love work. I'm a workaholic anyway. I have to be careful that I don't overdo it. Personally, I like responsibility. And one of the things, sometimes I've encountered people and they don't seem to like responsibility. They want to push responsibility off on everyone else. You do it. Where to me, I've been one of those, give me the stinking ball and let me run with it.
Yeah,
give me the ball.
Absolutely.
Let me go. Let's see how far I can get it, because I love responsibility. Life is, to me, responsibility gives life meaning and purpose. And I've often looked at what he did in the garden, and God put him there, and he was there to till the land. And he was there to take care of it, right? He's there to work it and take care of it. I've often thought of the opportunity for closeness to God as I came on our property and I worked on it. I worked to build gardens. I worked to bring order to a property that had been neglected, abandoned, let go. There's briars everywhere. There's poison sumac trees everywhere. There's poison ivy everywhere. And to take a property like that and to bring order to it, to build beautiful gardens, to make it nicer, to landscape, to build decks off the back of the house. To me, when you do those things, that to me is God gave me my piece of land to take care of. And I mostly in that few acres around the house is where I primarily work, but he gave me that to bring order to my world. And that's my job. Bring order to your world. Just like he did. Work a job. We live in a day, I've talked to so many business owners who cannot find workers. And they've said, if it's not for my family, I don't know what I would do, because the only people working are your families. It is scary, because what are you people doing? Right? Because we're supposed to be working.
You know, actually, as you were kind of saying, bring order to the chaos, order to the world. That's exactly what the Lord does in these two chapters, because it starts out, the earth was formless and empty. It was void. And then we see the 7 days of creation, the 6 days of creation, and then the rest. And then I'm skimming real quick. Chapter 2, verse 5. Now no shrub had yet appeared on the earth, and no plant had yet sprung up, for the Lord God had not even sent rain. It's like, okay, well, there's nothing here. There's truly nothing here. So what kind of story can come from this? Well, the Lord God worked and created all this, and then he has Adam over it, take care of it. I think that's kind of cool.
Like, have you been out in California? I know you've been out in Texas.
I've never been to California.
California, when we went out there last year and we were driving in through, so basically from Vegas, we were driving up through, it might have been near the Joshua Tree National Forest even, but we saw a lot of those. But you would be driving down the road and through irrigation is very arid and dry. They would have acres and acres and acres. I think it was almond trees and orange trees, acres of it in the desert that man came and irrigated it and took care of it and planted where it's nothing but like shrubby, dusty area. You know, there's little scrub trees here and there. And they plant these incredible orchards, and you see them for miles. And that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about, where God has put us here to bring order to our world. And here's another thing. In 16 and 17, the Lord God commanded the man, you are free to eat from any tree in the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of the good and evil, because when you eat from it, you will die. And you look at this verse, and he had the right to say, don't eat from that tree. I'm putting the tree there for my purposes. I don't want you eating from that tree.
Yeah. So again, up to this point, everything is good. Everything is perfect. He tells us what to do. There's goodness in it. There's blessing in it. This is the first time he says, don't do this. This is a no-no. So this is it. This is God saying, this is good. This is not good. Does Adam make the rules? No, God does. He says, no, you can do this. don't do this.
And there's God being such a killjoy, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Such a cosmic killjoy. There he is. He put a tree in the garden they weren't allowed to eat from. But here's the thing. When you eat from it, trouble's coming. You're going to die. We look at cancer, heart disease, all the problems that we have. I've just been involved in actually 2 suicides recently. In other words, I did a funeral for one. I was a committal for another. That was my involvement. I wasn't involved in helping the planet or anything, okay? But I was involved in the burial part of it. And I just think about how catastrophic some lives are going and how terrible it is. And it's all part of the curse. The best plan for mankind was laid out right here. Don't eat from that tree. Don't eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God told them because it's not going to go well for you when you do. God gave them tons of trees to eat, because sometimes I'll hear this, oh, you Christians can't do anything. You just can't do anything. You never have any fun. And to everyone who's ever said that, I always say, you give me your time and I'll have fun with it. Because there's tons of things I do that are fun that don't include being drunk, don't include being stoned, don't include being immoral. Tons of things that I do.
Absolutely.
There's sports, there's kayaking, there's hiking, there's photography, there's eating, there's spending time with your kids, there's playing games. There's so many wholesome things we can do. And really, when you think about what God has said not to do, it's a very small list when compared to all the things you can do. Yet we try to turn it around and make it like we can't do anything, which is not right. It's not accurate.
Yeah. No, you're very true. And then that next couple of verses where he says, it's not good for man to be alone. That's kind of the first time he says, this is not good.
Right.
Everything else up to this point, again, is good. I like to just point out the repeated words and phrases. Yeah, we have the don't eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil and that kind of thing. And then it is not good for man to be alone.
Right.
That's the first time we see anything that's not good.
Right.
Basically.
Right.
So I don't know. I just think it's so interesting to take note of this stuff.
This is a super important
what God
verse.
Says is good. Do this. Including work. Work is good. Do this. It's kind of command in his blessing, of all that he's blessed us with. And he says, do not do this.
Right. I agree. And he says it's not good for man to be alone. I'll make a helper suitable for him, which is going to be Eve. A couple things. One, this is the purpose of marriage. The purpose of marriage is companionship. And I think guys sometimes don't realize that their wives are built to be their companion. And that's innate in a woman. She wants to be the companion to her guy. When the guy ignores her, when the guy is always busy, when the guy never has time, when the guy never asks her out, she does not feel good about things because she doesn't feel good about the relationship. Why? Because she was designed to be a companion, and we've got to allow her to do that. That's just a fact. We have to allow our spouses to be our companion. Right.
And companions are partners. They're allies. They're with you. They're for you. They're not against you.
Right. And it's going to be somebody's suit for you, somebody who fits you. My wife fits me. We like the same things. Some of the things were different. My strengths, where I'm strong where she's weak. She's strong where I'm weak. As a team, we work together. The word helper is the same word used of God. God is our helper. So this is a very, our gals are very strong people. They're very capable people. I love women. Personally, and I don't mind saying, and I've said it before, if God said you can only have one beautiful thing left on the planet and I'm going to erase every other thing, what would it be? I'd be like, women, hands down. Are you kidding? I would never, can't imagine a world without the women in our lives. Can't imagine it. It would be terrible. So, I look at that and say, what a blessing it is. But I also understand I have to be a companion. I have to, as a man, I have to spend time with my wife. It's not about just me and a hobby. It's not about me going hunting. It's not about me going fishing all the time. It's not about me and everything I want to do and leaving her home all the time. No, I want to do things. I've always felt in marriage, I want to find those things to do that we do together. And I really believe that one of the reasons that I feel like I love my wife so much is because we do so much together. And that, I guess you would say, fertilizes that, waters that desire, that love that I have for her, and makes it even bigger and stronger.
Yeah. And just as far as I know, not everyone is married.
Right.
And even as time goes on, I think the average age of getting married in 2020 was like 32 or 34. Right. So all the young people, all the single people, still like being alone is not good for so many reasons.
Right.
Some of the biggest trouble you can ever get yourself into is probably when you were alone, when you were bored, when you were tired.
Right.
You're so susceptible to temptation and all sorts of other fleshly desires. So like even if you are single, it's still not good to be alone. You are meant to be in community. You are meant to be with other people. I think that's something it's kind of lost sight of a little bit.
I think it's lost sight of for sure, because I think that we also live in an electronic world where with social media, you can relate to people all over the world and they be your friends. It might be somebody in Europe. It might be somebody in South America. It could be Africa. It's just, they're your friends, but you can't relate worth a plug nickel standing next to somebody in a grocery line. And to me, that's kind of a hard thing. Like, I'm an extrovert. There are parts of me that are a little shy. Like, if I don't know people, I'm not real talkative. But I've learned to just go say hey and talk to people. If I go to, like today, I was at a committal, and you go there and there's people you don't know. You talk to people you do. You say hi to others. You shake hands on the way out. You just be friendly, But that to me, the ability to do that, should you desire to do that, seems to be lost in our world today.
Yeah.
There are people that can't talk to you. I mean, I'll go talk to some of these people. They don't even know what to say to me. All they know is this. Like, you talk.
They have separation anxiety away from their phone.
Right. Like they have to be, their eyes have to be here all the time. This is not what God intended for us, for sure. And I guess we're out of time, but appreciate you coming in and doing the podcast with me. And hopefully it's been helpful as we've gone through some verses, the last two podcasts on Genesis 1 and 2, about being a person, about being a man, not leaving the gals out, but definitely talking with Father's Day weekend being here, talking to our guys especially. But we appreciate you tuning in. Again, if you'd like to share the show, we'd love for you to do that. Let's build this. Together. Let's build this. Let's get the word out there where it needs to be. You all have a great and blessed week.